Howdy gamers, today we're going to be taking a look at something completely different, as is the usual around here, and that being a gaming laptop. Specifically, we're going to be taking a look at the Razer Blade 15 2020 base. Let's take a look. Most of the review coverage has been focused around the advanced model just because it has the fancy new gear as well as new thermal solution, but I think the base model still offers a pretty appealing choice for the particular kind of user. You can pick up this package with a 10th Gen i7, a GTX 1660 Ti, 256 gigs of storage, and 16 gigabytes of RAM for $1,600. If you are all about performance per dollar, you really are going to be much better looking at any of the other competitors, because the number one reason that you're buying a Razer Blade, really any of their laptops, is for this build quality slash aesthetic. The competitors have gotten better over the years, but there's still nothing quite like it in terms of the PC world. This thing feels incredibly solid and really reminds me of the times that I was more or less forced to use a MacBook for work a couple years ago. Build quality is really complemented very nicely with the choice of built-in peripherals, that being the keyboard, which is excellent. I have played a couple of multi-hour sessions on this and I really have zero complaints. I hadn't used a gaming laptop to play in a while, but this felt very comfortable and I had no issues with it. If anything does develop, I will definitely be sure to let you know, but the only gripe that I have about this is the software. I'll cover that here in a bit later, but the hardware is great. Speaking of other great hardware, this display. I have used a couple of pretty shite high refresh rate screens in the past, but this thing is great. It's a 144 Hertz panel at 1080p, and the response times are really great, and I see no noticeable ghosting when playing. Apart from that, which also feels amazing with this screen, is this trackpad. There is just nothing quite like it in terms of the PC world. This thing feels amazing, and especially with that high refresh rate screen, everything feels great. Now, I don't really normally use gestures in Windows, but this thing really almost makes me want to start, just because this animation, among others, just feels so incredibly responsive, just because it's refreshing so much and this trackpad is so damn good. Okay, the one peripheral, the one built-in thing that they kind of flopped on in my regards are these speakers, and maybe my expectations were a little bit too high, but compared to everything else, which is at a great or excellent level, these built-in speakers really kind of blow. So I kind of hate to rain on the parade, but that is the one area that they either cheaped out on or maybe just aren't quite up to snuff with competitors like Apple. Of course, the other thing on the base model, which is kind of a nice surprise, is that the base model actually has over the advanced model, and that is underneath. This is really easy to get access into, just a few screws around, nothing hidden. You can pop this out and you have access to replace pretty much anything that you'd want, namely the SSD, the RAM. I mean, you get that on the advanced model also, but what you get on this, you actually get a second M.2 slot. And that's really clutch, just because, again, I mentioned this model only came with 256 gigabytes of storage. So, but having a second slot for M.2, I just picked up a 1 terabyte SSD, threw it in there, and I didn't have to worry about reinstalling Windows or anything like that. So that was really clutch in case you want to pick up this cheaper model and then upgrade it down the line yourself, because, I mean, let's face it, nowadays, games like COD Warzone takes up basically 200 gigs all on its own, so you definitely want some extra storage. Now, earlier I mentioned that the keyboard software had some issues, and I'll go into a little bit more detail. So here I have my computer locked, and as you can see, the keyboard colors are just constantly cycling through a bunch of different colors. This is definitely not what I have it set to. I have it set to plain white because I wanted to blend into my office and not really look out of place when somebody comes in, partially why I also picked up this deep brand skin. So that's a bit of an annoyance, and you're gonna have to deal with it every single time you boot up your machine, you are locked, or you are shutting down your machine, because Razer Synapse has to be running in order for that to work. So once I sign in, after a couple seconds, it will then go into the profile that I set, which is again just plain white. And I could almost live with that, except for the fact that Razer Synapse doesn't start up every single time. I don't know what it is. This has happened across multiple updates, and I still have this issue. I've updated Windows, updated Razer Synapse, and it still happens. So I don't know what the cause is. I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big a deal. It's not losing me any performance, but it's still an annoyance that you kind of come to find when you use this day to day. Apart from just the colors, one of the more annoying things is that I have to set inside of Razer Synapse whether I want the function keys or the multimedia keys to take priority, because I want to just be able to tap and have everything happen, you know, when it comes to screen brightness, multimedia playback. But by default, you have to hold down function, and unless Razer Synapse is running, you're going to have to resort back to going to function and then using the function keys. That is just a really strange option. Most laptops that I've tried in the past have an option either in BIOS or in the OS itself to set the priority, and I never have this kind of issue. So Razer, please take a look at this, because again, probably minor in the grand scheme of things, but really, really annoying when it comes to day-to-day use. In case it's not super apparent, over an hour has elapsed since the last shot I took, because I launched the game, I totally got sucked into it. I've been playing for probably over an hour, maybe just around an hour, just on the laptop speakers. And this is probably a good chance for me to let you hear what the fan noise is like, so I'll just kind of be quiet for a bit. While it is a bit loud, I think the overall tone, it's not very high pitched, so it's totally tolerable, not really annoying. And if you have headphones on, you're really not going to hear it at all. This is the first time that I've extensively played with just the laptop speakers, and I will say, even though the speakers aren't great for music, and it's very kind of obvious, at least to me, the game audio sounds pretty damn good coming from it. So maybe that's what they tuned it for, and that's why it's not excellent for music. But I feel like there must be a different option where they could make it sound good for both for game and music. Apart from that, I will note that the games that I normally play, Valorant and CSGO as of late, they both run at over 144 FPS, even completely maxed out. So if you have any concern over that, I definitely wouldn't. Moving on to some of the smaller things you might be concerned about and touching on some of the accessories that I've been using lately, let's start off with the battery. You can probably expect about 4 to 5 hours of non-gaming use. You might be able to get a little bit more if you turn down the screen from 144 to 60 Hertz. You might be able to get a little bit of additional life if you turn down the brightness on the screen and the keyboard. In terms of ports, you get actually a pretty healthy mix. You get 3 USB-A, 2 USB-C. You can't charge from those, unfortunately, but I believe one of them is Thunderbolt 3 capable. You also get an Ethernet jack, a full-size HDMI, and that proprietary Razer charging port. Touching on that charger, it's actually pretty compact, well built, comes with a braided cable. Just make sure you take care of it, because you're very unlikely to be able to find a local replacement. In terms of accessories, before I was lugging around my main mouse, the Logitech G Pro Wireless, back and forth, but that was a gigantic pain in the ass. So I finally bit the bullet, bought a Logitech G305, not quite as nice, but it's still pretty compact, wireless, keeping this whole setup nice and relatively cable-free. So I also picked up this Arctis One from SteelSeries, which is actually one of the more affordable wireless options, has a detachable mic, and I was surprised to find out that it actually has a USB-C receiver, so you can actually make use of those ports. I tend to keep that on the left-hand side, and the receiver for my mouse on the right-hand side, just to keep that as close as possible. Since I bothered to build out this whole setup, I actually carry it around with me almost all the time. I've been using this bag. This is the Brevity Jumper, mainly a camera bag, but if it's the laptop, the accessories, and my camera stuff, pretty well without screaming, hey, this is a tech bag, a bunch of expensive stuff in here. And I think it looks pretty nice, fairly compact. While it's not excellent in all regards, it works pretty damn well for what I use it for here. Okay, if you have any questions about the accessories, anything that I missed about the laptop, feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll try to respond if I can. If I have any issues with this, you bet your ass that I will definitely follow up, either make a pinned comment or maybe publish an entire new video if I have issues, because I spent my own money on this and I plan to keep this for quite a while. So definitely be assured that if anything does happen, you guys will be the first to know. All right, feel free to subscribe to the channel. I always forget to tell you guys that. Follow me on my socials if you like. Other than that, thanks for sticking around. You guys have a good day. See ya.